On December 4, 1872, a British sailing ship spotted something strange drifting in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It was a merchant vessel, sails partially set, moving erratically, with no one at the helm. The crew of the British ship signaled. No response. They sailed closer. Still nothing. They sent a boarding party. What they found aboard would become the most enduring maritime mystery in history. The ship was in near-perfect condition. No damage. No fire. No signs of struggle. The cargo was untouched. The food was still on the table. The captain's logbook was open. But the captain, his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and the entire crew of 7 were gone. 10 people vanished from a locked ship in the middle of the ocean. No bodies were ever found. No distress call was ever sent. No explanation has ever been proven. This is the story of the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was a 103-foot American merchant brigantine. A 2-masted sailing ship built for carrying cargo across the Atlantic. She had a complicated history even before her famous disappearance. Originally named the Amazon, she had been involved in multiple accidents and ownership changes. By 1872, she was considered an unlucky ship by many sailors, though no one could have predicted what was about to happen. In October 1872, she was loaded with 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol at Staten Island, New York. Her destination, Genoa, Italy. In command was Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a 37-year-old experienced mariner with a spotless reputation. Deeply religious. Meticulous. Respected by everyone who sailed with him. This voyage, Captain Briggs made an unusual decision. He brought his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. They were a family voyage. Also aboard, a crew of 7 experienced sailors from Germany and the American Northeast. 10 people in total. They departed New York on November 7, 1872. They were never seen again. On December 4, 1872, almost a month after departure, the British brigantine Dei Grazia spotted the Mary Celeste drifting erratically about 400 miles east of the Azores Islands in the Atlantic. Captain David Morehouse recognized the Mary Celeste immediately. He had actually dined with Captain Briggs just weeks earlier in New York. He signaled. No response. He waited. Nothing. After 2 hours of watching the unmanned vessel drift, Morehouse sent his first mate, Oliver Devoe, to investigate. Devoe and 2 sailors rowed over and climbed aboard. What they found was deeply unsettling. The ship was structurally sound. The rigging was partially damaged but not destroyed. The cargo hold was intact, all 1,701 barrels of alcohol accounted for. The crew's personal belongings were untouched: clothing, boots, pipes, money, even valuables. In the captain's cabin, a half-eaten breakfast still on the table. A cup of tea, still warm. A sewing project belonging to Sarah Briggs, mid-stitch. Sophia's toys scattered on the floor. The ship's compass had been damaged, and the chronometer was missing. One of the 2 pumps was disassembled, suggesting the crew had been investigating a potential water leak. The last entry in the captain's log was dated November 25, 9 days before the ship was found. It gave their position as about 100 miles southwest of the Azores, and reported nothing unusual. One crucial detail stood out above all others. The ship's only lifeboat was missing. Whatever happened, the crew had abandoned ship deliberately, in an orderly fashion. But why? And where did they go? They were 400 miles from land. In a lifeboat. In the middle of the Atlantic. They had no chance. The Mary Celeste became an instant sensation. Newspapers around the world ran the story. The British Admiralty launched an inquiry. Investigators, historians, and armchair detectives have been theorizing ever since. Here are the most compelling explanations. Theory 1. Alcohol fumes explosion, the most accepted theory. The cargo was 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. 9 of those barrels were found to be empty when the ship arrived in Genoa. Researchers believe the alcohol may have produced fumes that built up in the cargo hold, creating a terrifying but non-destructive vapor explosion. Captain Briggs, fearing the ship was about to explode, may have ordered a rapid evacuation. Attaching a rope to the ship and rowing alongside in the lifeboat while waiting for the fumes to clear. If the rope snapped, or if a sudden wind pushed the Mary Celeste forward faster than the lifeboat could follow, the ship could have sailed away, leaving the crew stranded in open ocean with no chance of survival. This theory explains the hasty abandonment without explaining a visible emergency. It is currently the most widely accepted explanation. Theory 2, waterspout or seaquake. A submarine earthquake, a seaquake, could have caused violent, disorienting vibrations through the hull without leaving visible damage. To the crew below deck, it may have felt as if the ship was sinking, triggering an immediate evacuation. Similarly, a waterspout, a tornado over water, could have swept across the ship, terrifying the crew without leaving obvious structural damage. Theory 3, mutiny. The crew of the Dei Grazia. The ship that found the Mary Celeste knew Captain Briggs personally. Some investigators suspected the two crews had conspired together. Perhaps the Mary Celeste crew mutinied, killed the captain and his family, and transferred to the Dei Grazia, collecting a salvage reward later. The British inquiry actually suspected this. The crew of the Dei Grazia received a significantly reduced salvage award. An unusual decision suggesting the investigators weren't entirely convinced of their innocence. But no evidence of violence was ever found. No bodies. No blood. The inquiry ultimately could prove nothing. Theory 4, pirates. The Atlantic in 1872 was not free of piracy. Some researchers believe pirates boarded the Mary Celeste, murdered the crew, disposed of the bodies overboard, then for unknown reasons abandoned the ship without taking the valuable cargo. But nothing was stolen. Not the alcohol, not the valuables, not even the captain's money. Pirates who leave valuable cargo behind don't make much sense. Theory 5, the fictional explanation that became fact. In 1884, a young author named Arthur Conan Doyle, who would later create Sherlock Holmes, wrote a fictional short story about the Mary Celeste. In his story, the crew had been massacred by a passenger with a grudge. Many people read Doyle's story and assumed it was factual. For decades, elements of his fiction were reported as historical fact, contaminating the real investigation with invented details. This is why you may have heard there was food still cooking on the stove or a half-drunk cup of coffee. These details came from Doyle's fiction, not the actual investigation. The real mystery is strange enough without embellishment. After 150 years, here is what the historical record actually confirms. The Mary Celeste left New York on November 7, 1872, with 10 people aboard. Her last confirmed log entry was November 25, reporting no problems. She was found on December 4, abandoned but intact, drifting 400 miles from her last known position. The lifeboat was missing. The crew was never found. No distress call was ever recorded. No bodies were ever recovered. The cargo and all valuables were untouched. One of the barrels of alcohol was found to have leaked, not from damage, but because it was made of red oak, which is slightly porous. This single detail may be the most important clue. It suggests the alcohol fumes theory has real merit. But it doesn't explain why experienced sailors would permanently abandon a seaworthy ship. Captain Benjamin Briggs was known as a careful, experienced, deeply religious man. He had sailed the Atlantic many times. He would not have panicked without reason. Something happened between November 25 and December 4, 1872. Something that caused 10 people, including a 2-year-old child, to get into a small lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And never come back. The Mary Celeste arrived safely in Genoa in 1872, guided by a skeleton crew from the Dei Grazia. Her cargo was delivered. She was sold, resold, changed hands many times. She eventually ran aground off Haiti in 1885 in an insurance fraud scheme. An ignoble end to history's most famous ghost ship. But the fate of Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, his daughter Sophia, and the 7 men who sailed with them, remains unknown. Somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, in the winter of 1872, 10 people made a decision that cost them their lives. We don't know why they made it. We may never know. What do you think happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste? Drop your theory in the comments, I read every single one. If you enjoyed this mystery, check out our videos on the Roanoke Colony and the Dyatlov Pass incident, 2 more mysteries that have never been solved. Links on your screen now. Subscribe to Lost Chronicles. New history mystery every week.